half the reason I did this interview was I could just ask one question, which is, what do I need to do to get you to make another movie?
Yeah. I don't know. Send me some good material. I've been going through a lot of stuff and look, I wish I'd directed this movie, High Ground. I would love to have had a crack at this story. But Stephen did a lovely job. I'm happy with the way the film turned out. But I'm looking for stuff actively. I've had a couple of things up and ready to go, but then the world became a bit strange, to say the least. And I'm just here in Sydney at the moment, just trying to keep myself occupied.
I have a lot of questions for you. What TV series would you love to guest star on?
I don't know. I heard they were doing a Sex in the City the other day, and I thought, oh, that'd be fun to pop up in that.
A lot of people, when I speak to them, they mention Succession.
I enjoy watching that show. It'd be a very different experience to watch that show after you'd been on it, and it'd probably just be my ego that would want me to go and be on Succession because it's such a loved show. But I think I love watching it. I like being an audience member in that show. It's so well done.
Completely. What movie or movies do you think you've seen the most?
I've seen Apocalypse Now a lot. I have seen The Graduate a lot. Cuckoo's Nest I've seen a lot. I've watched Rolling Thunder Review like 3 times. I watched it again the other night. I don't know why. I just love all that footage. I just like all those moments. I love that. Once I read about how, what Scorsese was doing with it. I've watched King of Comedy a lot of times as well.
It's kind of good.
It's pretty great.
Kind of good.
It's pretty fantastic. In fact, I think the Joker owes a lot to that film. Like the whole story pretty much. Anyway, not that the Joker was not a great film. I think that's it. I think there's probably one. Oh, there's a couple of Truffaut films that I've watched a number of times. The Woman Next Door I've seen a lot.
If you could get the financing for anything tomorrow, what would you make and why?
I'd like to see kind of, do you remember The Candidate? I'd like to see a story about someone getting into politics these days, like a real kind of insider's view of what it's like, the difference between, I've been following politics in Australia since I've been back here, and I've been down to Parliament House a couple of times for different, campaigning for different things. And I just the psychology behind going into politics now, and because it feels to me like there's so many people involved in politics where I don't really understand where they stand at all politically or ethically or morally, but there's just such a balance of working up the ladder and playing safe bets here and there where you can't be pegged into a hole, which seems to me is kind of counterintuitive to the whole notion of politics, where you actually stand for something and believe in something. So I had the same notion years ago. I was fascinated by the idea of who now signs up to become a Catholic priest. Who goes into a seminary? Not what we all know about the dangers and the pitfalls of being a priest. Who are those young men that decide that they want to go into the seminary, and what is it that drives them? Is it the opportunity of having having a career somewhere where you have a voice and you're heard potentially, or is it because you really truly believe that you are led by a higher power? And it's kind of similar with politics, not to sort of mix church and state, but that they kind of exist in a similar sort of a realm. Are you going into it because you want a soapbox, and you're driven by the notion of that having that kind of influence and that kind of power, or because there's so much politicking in the modern sense of the word involved in that business, that it's hard to actually get anything done, and it's really hard to really believe in something. The system that we have in Australia here, we basically have a sort of a two-party system where we have a coalition government, which is a Liberal Party and a National Party, and the Liberal Party is more the Conservative Party relative to, in the States, the Liberal Party is the Democrats are the less conservative, more liberal. So it's slightly reversed. And our Labor Party is the more sort of broader-minded liberal thinking.
It's so, because when I think of it would be the complete opposite.
So I know I'd be interested in that. There's so many politicians that probably sit right on the fence, but they know that they could go further, with the Republican Party than they could have with the Democratic Party. I
don't know how it is in Australia, but politics here in the United States is off the rails. It's a really bad time, and it's just a really bad time.
One thing that always gets forgotten, and I think is really interesting, is that they are elected public servants. Their role is to represent the people, and that somewhere gets lost. And I think media has to take responsibility for that in a large degree, because we've turned it, in America certainly, it's been turned into, I say we because I'm a dual citizen, I'm an American citizen as well as an Australian citizen, but I think we have held them up with that kind of overt media attention. But I still believe that there are politicians out there that believe in something and fight for a cause and want to follow that through. And I just hope that at a certain point they're going to outnumber those that are more opportunistic.
I pray you're right. I really mean that. I want to jump into films for a second. What do you remember about making LA Confidential? Because I absolutely love that movie, and that's like one of your first film roles, I believe.
It was my first film, yeah. I mean, it was great. It was fantastic. Dante Spinotti shot the thing. Curtis Hanson was lovely and gentle and warm. It was an unreal experience. I do remember this, is that, because I auditioned for the Ed Exley character that Guy Pearce played, and I was told that I came very close. And when I found out that, they'd cast someone else, I'd lost someone else, I had no idea who it was. And then when I found out it was Guy Pearce, who was another Australian, I was like, what? I was kind of disappointed. I mean, Guy was incredibly, he was brilliant in that role. But I was like, if I'd lost it to Sean Penn or someone, I probably would have stomached it a little better. But I lost it to Guy Pearce, who was sort of fresh off the boat as well. I was like, what? Anyway, no disrespect to Guy. I mean, he's a very talented actor.
I totally get what you mean, and I'm sure Guy would understand. I really dig the movie Margin Call, and you have a small but important part in that film. And it's a murderer's row of talent in that thing. Same question. What do you remember about making that movie?
It was fantastic making that film, not just because the cast was incredible and everyone got along very well, and there was a real nice ease. It was a very small budget. We had the floor of I think it was the whole floor in Penn Plaza or something on the 36th floor. So the view was incredible, and that was basically where the majority of the film, almost all of the film, was shot there, in those trading rooms. And it was a hedge fund firm that had gone out of business. And we just moved in, and we all had an office, which is basically your own change room. And then you'd go to the set on the other side, and then the floor above was where they had catering. So it was hermetically sealed. So we were around each other all the time, and it was a really good experience. I mean, JC Chandler did such a great job with that film for his first film. He just made it very simply. It wasn't complicated. He didn't try to overcomplicate it. And yeah, like you said, it was an incredibly talented cast, and it was in a hiatus from the show. I was on the TV show, and it was in a hiatus. And one thing that I really loved about it, it was a really short shoot, so it didn't take up the whole hiatus. I could still have a holiday.
Yeah, I think people don't realize when you're making a show, and that you're talking about Mentalist, I believe, when you're making a show like that, it takes up so much of your calendar that when you finally have a break, it's like a summer vacation. You have to be very selective with what you want to do.
Yeah. I actually had to get talked into that because I was on a holiday. I was in the UK actually, touring universities with my daughter at the time.
Does it ever get old, people asking you about Devil Wears Prada? Or is it one of those things where it's like so beloved that you're like, I love that I'm in it?
I've never seen it.
Wait, for real?
I've never seen it.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of get it. I saw the trailer. And I think the movie was a really good movie, and it was very successful. And I can generally, like, it's funny, like after you've worked for a number of years, you can kind of, I never achieved, I was never like a movie star. I never really achieved this great, and I had success, what I would attribute to as success. But the films that I've done are quite varied. And I can generally pick like, oh, that's a Devil Wears Prada fan. When someone comes up and goes, oh, hi, and it's like Devil Wears Prada fan. Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, it's good. I don't. As long as people are courteous and polite, it makes me feel good to make someone feel good. So if people enjoy it, then that's great.
Jumping into why I actually get to talk to you, and I thank you for indulging me with everything else. What was it about this material and this project that said, I need to do this?
First of all, because I'd not seen a film like this. I thought it was ambitious in what it was actually trying to set out to do, and do it in a way where it was still kind of like an exciting film. I had moved back to Australia when I made Breath, and I'd gotten and I was curious about sort of the development of the Indigenous story in Australian cinema, and how it was represented. And there's a few phenomenal Indigenous directors making their stories in different ways. I had not seen this story done in this particular way, with language, and seeing Indigenous Australians with an organised resistance to and fighting back in the way that they did in this film. I felt that had the potential to be very empowering, but also had the potential to awaken a lot of white Australians to some of to sit with some of the real truths that it took place, the atrocities that took place in the colonization of this country, and also it touches on some of the beauty and the richness of the indigenous culture as it exists and has existed for 60,000 years. And like anything, it's like I knew it was going to be a really difficult film to make, a really challenging film to make. I also knew that even if the film didn't turn out, it would be an experience that would be incredibly rich, and would help me develop as a human being, and give me a broader understanding of what happened here in this country. And I think it's happened. Similar things have happened in obviously in a lot of countries that have been colonized, in your country as well.
I saw so many similarities between the Native Americans in America and what happened in Australia. And to be honest, I didn't really know that much about the Australian history, but I felt like I learned a lot watching it. I thought the movie was very well done.
Do you feel that you know a lot about, American Indian history?
Yeah, I've studied that myself because I think it's important to be educated to your own, the history of a country.
For me, I also like that story, the story in High Ground. I like that story. I didn't learn anything about that in school. That wasn't taught. That wasn't the history of Australia um, that I was taught in school was all based around Captain Cook and turning essentially turning what was a sort of a wild frontier into a white colonized society.
One of the things I think that I commend you on about making this movie is a story like this and a movie like this. People aren't clamoring to tell these stories. These are really hard to get made. And I'm curious, can you sort of talk about, the fact that these are very difficult stories to bring to life and that aspect of it?
The film industry is this sort of hybrid between art and commerce. And in the art of it, art can be sometimes confronting and revealing and challenging, but obviously commerce drives a lot of it. We are fortunately in a time where we are embracing major changes, where we're not everything is not completely whitewashed anymore. We're curious and interested in different cultures, even within our societies, and I think that's a beautiful, fantastic development for all of us as a community, but all of us as artists as well, to be able to explore these different stories. Yes, it's not easy to make a film like this because a lot of our base entertainment is good versus bad. It's more polarized. So it's nice to have a film that sits somewhere in the middle, and it deals with these sort of gray areas. Is my character a white savior? He's ambiguous at times. Everyone is ambiguous. He's probably more ambiguous than other characters. Avoiding the polarization, I think, is interesting. Also, like, to bring this story in Australia, to bring this story to white Australians, is a great service to be able to do that, for them to look in and to be confronted and to be challenged. And quite honestly, I've watched the film in the Northern Territory community screenings, Indigenous community screenings, and their experience of the film is one thing. And obviously I've talked to white Australians that have seen the film who immensely enjoyed the film and feel that it is every Australian's obligation to their country to go and see this film and to experience that, but are incredibly challenged and feel incredibly uncomfortable in a lot of scenes in the film. And I say, that's fantastic. Sit with that uncomfortability. There's nothing wrong with feeling uncomfortable. It happened. It happened on many occasions, and what you're seeing on screen is probably a very, very diluted, watered down version of how atrocious it was. So sit with it. Don't run from it. Just be there and feel it, and let that go into you and resonate within you, because it's going to shift. It'll help shift the needle for you, for everyone. And I think that's what we're trying to do now, is shift the needle. There's obviously people that are going to be flying on the bull bar of that needle, and they're going to shift that quickly, and they want to shift that, and they can stand there and go, why aren't you all over here? It just does take a little bit of time. And I understand impatience, but I also, some people need to sit with the uncomfortability of it. And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid being uncomfortable. Art can do that.
100%. And no, this is everything you said, I agree with. My last thing for you, because I'm basically out of time. I'm just curious if you think, I think one of the strengths of what's going on with streaming is that it is not forced to be a 4-quadrant project. You can be aiming at, individuals or smaller groups of people, and I think that's allowing more voices to be heard, and it's allowing for more diversity both in front of and behind the camera. I'm just curious if you could talk about your take on streaming, if it's something that you are, you know what I mean, just like how it's just bringing in a lot of people to tell their story, I think.
I would agree with you. I mean, it's more and more so it's becoming a portal to the world where you can go and explore different cultures and see different perspectives and different views of things other than your own. And I think that is a great blessing. It's kind of like the decentralization of it. It's like it's opening up these great windows. We used to have this kids show in Australia, it still exists. It's called Play School, and they had a section where they went to the windows and they'd look through the windows, and they'd have these little video clips where they'd take you into these sort of different worlds, like, oh, and this is the life of a dairy farmer as a kid, and you'd watch it. This is the life of so I see Netflix now, and I turn it on, or any of these streaming services, there's all these different windows that you can go down and explore, and it's good. I mean, for a long time, it's like most of the television I watch is foreign, because I'm just curious as to the way they tell stories. And if it's very good, America will generally try to buy the rights to it and remake it anyway.
It's true, unfortunately. It's very true. Listen, I got to go. A million other questions, but I'll save those for the next time I talk to you for the movie that you directed, hopefully.
Yeah, okay. I gotta get off my ass and get on with it. You're right.
Listen, you made a really effing good movie, and I'm just saying you should do another one. Anyway, that's just me being selfish, I guess.
There's a lot of great movies being made. There's a lot of people that are getting opportunities now that probably didn't have the chance earlier to have opportunities, and I think there's great stuff out there. I'll get back in the queue at some point.
Stay safe and healthy. Thank you so much for giving me your time.
Thanks. Take care, mate.